pleasure and a great honor to introduce to you a man who I call my friend, a man who has spent 39 years serving his country in the Air National Guard. He's a former mayor of Brea, former school board president here in Brea, Linda Unified School District. He's a 30-year Brea resident. He's a veteran of the Korean War and the Vietnam Wars. Colonel Rex Gaede.
Remembrance and rededication. Memorial Day is a day we set aside once a year to remember and honor those of all our wars who answered the final muster. This holiday grew out of the only conflict in our national history where the enemy was ourselves, the Civil War, the saddest and bloodiest encounter we ever endured. Brother against brother, state against state, the North against the South, one nation divided against itself. In just one battle, Gettysburg, the number of American casualties on both sides nearly equal the total number of our fighting men lost over the entire 10 years of the Vietnam conflict. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the Civil War was over. We were one people again, rededicated to the greens of our founding fathers. In memory of those who died on each and every side, Memorial Day emerged as our only national holiday commemorating the Civil War. And rightly so, and so fitting an observance of the sacrifices made rather than the battles won or lost. Like we see here today, flags soon began to appear in the cemeteries across this great land on this day, Memorial Day. In the beginning, of course, it was known as Decoration Day, reflecting the practice of decorating graves of the soldiers of the war between the states, who fought and died for the principles they so dearly believed. Today, Memorial Day, not only observes its origins, but the long line of those who made the final sacrifice for this country in the many wars since Appomattox. They rest in cemeteries across America, like here, and across the world, marked and unmarked, but never forgotten. First, the Spanish-American War, where we fought in places like San Juan Hill, Manila Bay, to the cries of charge and damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. To the war to end all wars, World War I, ringing with names like Chateau Thierry, Argonne Forest, and Verdun, where our doughboys fell in large numbers in the mud and blood of trench warfare. And America rejoiced at the end with cries of, "Bring the boys home." And they came home, believing they had done it all for the first and last time. It was not to be. And again, we were at war on truly global proportions this time. From the Pacific Island invasions of places like Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa, and at sea in battles like Midway and the Coral Sea. We heard the cries of, "Praise the Lord," and pass the ammunition. To the beaches of Normandy, through the hedgerows of France, to the cold and snow of Bastogne, where we heard the immortal retort of an American general to a German surrender order, "Nuts." And to the massive air attacks on targets like Berlin, Frankfurt, and Ploesti, where the wild blue yonder mixed with red-blooded American courage. And then it too was over. VE Day, VJ Day, the days of war were once again silenced. But then came Korea, where we fought our first limited war, where places like Busan, Chosun Reservoir, and Inchon fill our memories. A war we were ill prepared for and nearly lost until we rallied, but at the cost of thousands of brave Americans. And then to the war we seem to try to not win, Vietnam, where names like Da Nang, Pleiku, Khe Sanh, and also Kent State still remind us of a then divided nation, but eternally grateful for the personal sacrifices and courage of our fighting men and women over those long years of an unpopular conflict. Then we fought what I call our first punitive war of the modern era, the Gulf War, where an overwhelming force of over 500,000 American troops, along with their allies, freed Kuwait and decimated scores of Iraqi divisions in merely a 100-hour period of ground warfare, while suffering little more than that number in American casualties. Now we find ourselves in yet another kind of war against world terrorism, one that in some ways reminds us of the Civil War. Like then, it has happened in our homeland. Instead of brother against brother, we seem to have the brotherhood of man against itself. Instead of north against south, we have the east against the west. Today, however, it is not so much a question of war or peace, but rather, how much war are we willing to suffer? How much peace are we willing to achieve? How much of the former must we accept? How much of the latter can we expect? Whatever the outcome of this conflict, the determining factor is the will, commitment, and courage of the American people to stand for what they believe in, not the threat of the enemy. We must not waver in our resolve to both friend and foe alike. Aggression cannot be tolerated and certainly not rewarded if we are to maintain a world ruled by law rather than by the sword. To paraphrase a famous American comes to mind, patriotism in the defense of freedom is not an option, but an obligation of citizenship. Perhaps it is timely for each of us to take inventory of the meaning of our freedoms, for which those whom we honor here today gave and are still giving their lives for this country. Remembrance and rededication, two necessary exercises of a free people who wish to remain free. No one appreciated it more than the late General Douglas MacArthur. In conclusion, I would like to share with you a moment in his life which best illustrates this spirit to me. On that dreary day in the late winter, he bid farewell to his beloved Corps of Cadets and to West Point. He traced his own feelings about his more than 50 years of military service to his country, stressing the code of conduct he learned as a cadet served him well in his many trials and triumphs. He concluded his remarks in a voice shaken by age and emotion of a man facing the finality of life, and gave what I believe said it all for all of us when he said, "I always return to West Point and the Corps, where I can still hear the cadence of the distant muffled drums of Corps past, repeating the haunting refrain, duty, honor, country, duty,